Did you know that the average American spends over $1,500 a year on things they don't need? That's a staggering $18,000 over a decade. Yet, despite all these purchases, studies show that nearly 60% of people feel overwhelmed by their belongings. How can something we buy to make us happy lead to such stress? In a world overflowing with choices and constant advertisements, it's easy to fall into the trap of consumerism. Brands want you to believe that happiness comes from owning more. They bombard us with messages telling us we need the latest gadgets, clothes, and trends. But what if I told you that embracing minimalism can be the key to a more fulfilling life? This video will dive deep into the reasons why brands don't want you to be a minimalist. You'll learn how the illusion of choice keeps us trapped in a cycle of buying more and more. We'll explore how fear of missing out, FOMO, drives our purchases, and how brands profit from our cluttered minds. Are you ready to discover the truth? Join us as we unravel the strategies that keep consumerism alive and explore the power of living with less. Minimalism isn't just a trend, it's a movement that can change your life for the better. Let's get started. Chapter 1. The Minimalist Myth. Why less is more dangerous to brands. Minimalism can seem like a peaceful, empowering choice, but it's a threat to big brands. Why? Because brands thrive on the idea that we constantly need more. They want us to believe that owning more makes us happier, more successful, and more complete. But minimalism turns that idea on its head. Instead of chasing the next must-have, minimalists focus on living with only what they need. Here's the thing. Brands have spent decades convincing us that our lives are incomplete without their products. Research from a Nielsen study found that 92% of people trust brand recommendations from friends and family over ads. Yet, we're bombarded with thousands of marketing messages daily, creating an illusion that we need what brands are selling. Brands don't like minimalism because it means fewer purchases, plain and simple. If you're content with what you have, you're less likely to buy something new. For them, that's a big problem. The minimalist movement isn't just a lifestyle choice, it's a direct challenge to the consumer-driven economy. It's about finding happiness in fewer things, and that's not what brands want. In the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown, he says, the pursuit of success can be a catalyst for failure. It can lead to what Jim Collins calls the undisciplined pursuit of more. This undisciplined pursuit is exactly what brands rely on. Minimalism counters this with a disciplined pursuit of less. And that's why brands see it as a threat. Chapter 2. The Illusion of Choice. How brands sell clutter. We all think having more choices is better, right? But that's exactly how brands trick us into buying more than we need. They flood the market with countless variations of the same product, making us feel like we're in control. But are we really? Barry Schwartz, in The Paradox of Choice, points out that too many choices can lead to anxiety and less satisfaction with what we pick. Think about how often you've stood in front of an aisle, overwhelmed by all the options. Brands capitalize on that confusion. They know that when we're overwhelmed, we tend to buy more as a safety net. The result? Clutter. And clutter is the enemy of minimalism. Minimalism teaches that the fewer choices you have, the clearer your mind becomes. Brands, on the other hand, thrive on keeping you in a state of constant decision-making. A Harvard Business Review study showed that too many options can reduce the likelihood of making a decision at all. This makes minimalism a countercultural act. Take Apple for instance. While they still release new products, their product line is relatively simple compared to competitors. This streamlined approach attracts people who appreciate simplicity. But most brands don't follow this model. Why? Because more choices equal more potential purchases. Brands want you confused, overwhelmed, and buying more than you need. Chapter 3. Fear of missing out. FOMO, brands' secret weapon against minimalism. FOMO is a powerful tool for brands. It's the fear of missing out on a trend, an experience, or a product. It's what drives so many of our purchases. Brands use FOMO to make us feel like we need to stay up to date, even if we're perfectly fine with what we already have. A study by Eventbrite revealed that 69% of millennials experience FOMO regularly, especially in relation to social media and trends. This fear is the lifeblood of many brands. They want you to believe that everyone else is enjoying something you're missing out on. And it's effective. Minimalism, however, encourages you to reject FOMO. When you focus on what truly matters to you, you realize that most of the things brands push aren't essential. It's liberating. Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus, authors of The Minimalists, say, "Love people, use things. The opposite never works." This mindset eliminates the need for constant consumption. Brands, though, can't afford for you to feel this way. They need you to feel like you're falling behind. That's why they push limited-time offers, special editions, and product drops. They want to create urgency where there is none. In fact, a study from Stanford University shows that scarcity tactics, like limited stock, can increase sales by as much as 50%. The antidote to FOMO? Intentionality. Minimalism teaches that when you buy with intention, you stop worrying about what others have. You focus on your needs, not the wants that brands insist you have. And that's why brands don't want you to be a minimalist. If you're enjoying this content and want to dive deeper into how minimalism can change your life, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Chapter 4. The Profit Problem. Why minimalism is bad for business. It's no secret that brands need profits to survive. But here's the kicker, minimalism messes with that formula. When people adopt a minimalist mindset, they start buying less, and that hits a brand's bottom line. For big companies, this is a major problem. The global advertising industry alone is worth over $700 billion, according to Statista. That's a lot of money spent convincing you to buy things you don't really need. But minimalism teaches the exact opposite. It encourages you to live with less. And less buying equals less profit for companies. It's simple math. The average American home has 300,000 items in it, according to the LA Times. Think about that for a second. Brands have convinced us that owning more is the path to happiness. But minimalism flips that idea on its head, showing that true contentment comes from having only what's essential. This shift in mindset challenges the very business model that many companies rely on. In her book The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, Marie Kondo says, "The best way to find out what we really need is to get rid of what we don't." This kind of thinking terrifies brands because it means fewer repeat customers. They count on you constantly needing upgrades, replacements, and more options. Minimalism encourages the opposite. Another thing to consider is planned obsolescence. Brands often design products to fail or go out of style, so you have to buy the next version. But minimalists look for quality over quantity. They'd rather invest in one high-quality item that lasts years instead of buying the same thing over and over. This mentality cuts deeply into the profit-driven culture of mass production. Chapter 5. Declutter your mind. How minimalism cuts through consumer noise. We're living in the most distracted time in history. Brands compete for our attention everywhere, on social media, TV, billboards, and even in our homes. Research shows that the average person is exposed to between 4,000 and 10,000 ads per day. That's a lot of noise. Minimalism isn't just about owning fewer things, it's also about decluttering your mind. When you clear out the excess, you're able to focus on what truly matters. But brands don't want you to have that clarity. They thrive on keeping you distracted and overwhelmed. After all, the more confused and overwhelmed you feel, the more likely you are to make impulse purchases. Cal Newport, author of Digital Minimalism, says, "Clutter is costly. It's not just a disorganized home, it's a disorganized mind." Brands bombard us with distractions because they don't want us to think critically about what we actually need. By keeping us constantly busy, they ensure we're too distracted to resist their messages. Take the concept of the dopamine loop. Every time we see something new, like a flashy ad or a new product, our brains release dopamine, the feel-good chemical. Brands know this and use it to keep us hooked. But minimalism teaches us to break free from this loop. When we stop chasing every new thing, we regain control of our minds. The advertising industry is built on creating wants, not needs. Minimalism gives us the mental space to see through the noise and recognize the difference. And that's bad news for brands that rely on impulse buys to boost their sales. If you found this video insightful, be sure to subscribe for more content on minimalism and how to take control of your life.